Hi there. My name is Kevin Alcuni, and I'm a librarian here in the Department of Exploration and Creativity.
Hello, and my name is Diana Levo-Posner, and I am the Principal Librarian and Associate Director of Exploration and Creativity Department with the Los Angeles Public Library. And I'm here with Kevin today to welcome you to today's LA Made program celebrating Earth Day with bees and
Trees.
trees.
We didn't put that in the script.
Yeah, sorry.
Impromptu, sorry. Before we begin, though, we'd like to thank the National Endowment for the Humanities, our library foundation, and our behind-the-scenes staff for helping bring the LA Made programs to you virtually. Thanks, Steve. LA Made focuses on the diverse landscape of Los Angeles, highlighting the immense artistic and performance talent that has developed in the course of the city's eclectic history. If you'd like to see more of our amazing programs, please visit our online calendar at lapo.org/events. And for our LA Made programs, visit lapo.org/LAMade. Our website also has blog posts and video links that highlight the library's diverse resources and upcoming programs.
We would also like to take this opportunity to recognize and acknowledge the first people of this land, honor their elders, past and present, as well as their descendants who are citizens of these nations. For more information on which territory you may reside in, check out native-lands.ca, and we just put it on the screen right there. And then we'll put it in the comments later too. And now on to today's program, celebrating Earth Day with bees and trees.
Huzzah! The huzzah was also improvised, sorry.
Join Byron Levy and from Save My Bees and Byron's Bee Company and Elliott Kuhn of Cottonwood Urban Farms for a conversation on our city's urban ecology, from compost and soil to plants, trees, pollinators, and bees. Byron and Elliott will be live, they're live right now on Elliott Farm for a look at how nature continues to complete its cycle of resilience and abundance in the sprawling metropolis of Los Angeles. And now let's welcome to our LA Made stage, Elliott and Byron.
Yay.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you so much for having me. And us.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
All right, we'll let you guys have it, and we'll see you in a little while.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, yeah. Go ahead, Elliott.
I'll jump in with a little quick intro. Hi, I'm Elliott Kuhn, Cottonwood Urban Farm. We're about a half-acre resident ag property here in the Northeast San Fernando Valley, and we run a community compost hub for LA Compost. We house a nonprofit called Black Thumb Farm that does education for high school age kids in the area, and we are open to the public every Saturday. So if after our presentation you're all interested in coming visiting us and seeing some of the systems that we're talking about today, please come and visit us any weekend that fits your needs. So thank you.
And I am Byron Levy. I run a bee removal business called Save My Bees, where I remove bees from people's homes and their trees, and then keep those bees and put them into production and get the honey from them. Yeah, that started in Los Angeles. I'm passionate about wild bees and teaching people about, not to be so afraid of bees and insects in general. And I hope to share a little bit of that knowledge with you today and their relationship to the environment and trees and pollinating. So we actually have a little special thing for you guys here today, and it's an observation hive. And if you could turn on that feed there. Yeah. So what we have here, this is an observation hive. And what we're looking at are bees. All the bees you're seeing are female bees. And they have different roles in a hive depending on their age. Right now, they're trying to get out of there, but they're also taking care of the brood. And the brood are the baby bees that start off as eggs that then develop into larvae. And once they're at a stage of development, that little cell is capped. And so you can see on that piece of honeycomb, you'll see capped cells and open cells. Those capped cells are bees that will emerge within the next couple days. And the first role they will have as soon as they emerge will be nurse bees. They will immediately come out and start to take care of the eggs and the larvae. They just instinctively know what to do. over the course of the next couple weeks, they gain their flight wings, and every day they gain the confidence to leave the hive and come back. And once they have that confidence sort of set in, they become foragers, and that begins their role of gathering pollen and nectar, and storing away the honey for us to take and enjoy in our tea and all the other things. What's unique about an observation hive is, we get to peek into this environment and this colony and see how it operates and see how they operate. But really, what bees do is they teach us how to observe. When you can kind of tune into nature and you can kind of tune into bees and tune into their vibration, there's a lot to learn from the way they communicate, from the way they operate with nature. And, all of these things we're going to be talking about today are really sort of gateways into nature and allowing us as humans to connect with nature in ways that go beyond sort of our sort of scientific, how do we manipulate things, and allowing nature to teach us. In a hive, you have 3 bees. You have the queen, you have the worker girls, and you have drones. The drones are the males. And that is all a hive consists of. And throughout the year, the hive is growing and contracting with the seasons. As things come into bloom, the queen is laying more eggs, and those eggs then become, foragers, and they're gathering the resources to continue growing and staying alive. Interesting thing about a queen is a wild queen can live up to 7 years. And, in that lifetime, she'll lay millions of eggs. And the regular bees, the foragers, the worker girls, the ones that sting people, their life cycle really depends on the time of year. They live 2 to 3 weeks at the peak of spring and the peak of blooms, because they work themselves. Did I say 2 to 3 weeks? I said weeks, right?
Yes.
Anyone? Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
So that life cycle is pretty short during spring, but as the blooms contract and we go into what is called a dearth, and a dearth is when nothing is in bloom and it's very hot and everything's kind of fried up, they can live up to 6 months. But a bee's life cycle is much shorter than the queen's, and the drones really get the short end of the stick in a hive. They really can't feed themselves. All they do every day is fly around looking for a queen to mate with. And when the blooms happen to stop and there is no resources coming in, well, the girls kick the boys out, and they are just forced to fend for themselves, and then they end up dying, usually right in front of the hive. Tough life for a male bee, but they serve their role. There's really so much to learn about bees. They have an amazing ability to communicate all kinds of things. Communicate distance. They can communicate likes and dislikes. They're actually scientifically proven to be democratic, and they vote on what is best for the colony in the time of a swarm. There's a very good book for those that are scientifically inclined, called "The Democracy of Bees" by his name is not coming to me at the moment, but Cornell professor Tom Seeley, and his work, built on the research of previous bee experts, has proven that bees are democratic, and they do vote. And for me, what bees have been is really sort of a gateway to nature, and learning how to communicate with an insect, or I should say, allowing them to teach me how to learn from them. And it really comes through vibration and being calm, which did not come so easily. I wasn't always comfortable with bees crawling on my hands. That took a few years to get used to. But once you do get comfortable with that kind of thing, you get comfortable with a lot of different things in nature, like wasps, and all sorts of creepy crawly insects that, generally freak us out across the board. But yeah, bees for me, have been a really profound experience, and they've really taught me how to be calm and non-reactive. They have really refined my observational skills. And without bees, there would be, very little fruit and vegetables for us to consume. And that kind of brings us to our next little topic here, which is, the growth of plants and flowers and trees.
Yeah.
And so go ahead, Elliott.
Just to jump in there. So I think that's really cool that you're making the thing, like, the more exposure to it, right, the more you've tapped into it and become more comfortable with it. And I think to segue on that, that's how I feel about compost, right? At first, people are so turned off by, like, oh, rotting food, it stinks, it's no good. And as we start to get it, you're like, oh, this is an essential part of it. I don't have any problem touching rotted food now, and just to build off of that, right? Like, these bees are this essential process. And I've gotten to know Byron over the last 7 years. He's been awesome enough to provide us with beehives here at the farm and really educate us on, at first what feral hives were and what that was to keep that here, but really how important they are to the whole system at large. And so, we, in conceptualizing this kind of talk today in honor of Earth Day, I think both Byron and I were agreeing that the idea was to try to show that everything is cyclical and it's all tied together. There's nothing operating in isolation here. And so these insects are just as connected to the soil as the plants that they're foraging off of. And Byron was awesome to stop by on our open Saturdays this last weekend, where we have volunteer people come, and we have a couple neighborhood folks, Andrea and Alex, that manage the compost pile here, which we're processing over 1,500 pounds of food waste every week. So if possible, I'd love to run that clip now so people can have a little look into where all of this starts. And it starts in making healthy soil.
So once we receive drop-offs from the community, we dump it on our piles here, and we do a lasagna method where we have browns on the bottom, food waste in the middle, and then more browns on top, and we'll water in between. And that's a part of the 4 ingredients that you need for composting, which is air, water, food waste, and brown waste. And after a week, you'll want to turn the pile to introduce air into the pile. And so we are at the turning point in our pile, and we're introducing air for the microbes in the compost pile. If we do not turn, it becomes anaerobic, and methane will start to produce and go into the air. So we want to mitigate that from happening. And to do that, we just turn the pile every couple weeks. So temperature is extremely important to a compost pile. We want it to get above 130 degrees for about 2 weeks. And the reason being is we want to kill off any pathogens or unwanted weed seeds. After 2 weeks of getting above temperature, it'll drop down in temperature, and after a month of curing, it'll be ready to get sifted. So we're here at the final stages of the compost process. Here at the sifting station, we'll take the finished compost and put it through the sifters in order to separate the big wood chunks from our finished compost soil amendment.
Fantastic. So that's also wonderful dog food, apparently. I love that little ending clip there. So I'm here. I flipped the camera around. These are our piles. So like I said, over 1,500 pounds of food waste every week. And the other product that we're using is wood chip mulch. And blending those two items together, it's called lasagna, as Alex said, but blending them together gets us this finished product. And really, I just wanted to show you a little bit of what this allows us to do here. So all of this is growing. So if I scroll down here, this is the raw native soil that has nothing on top of it. And you can see it's really dry, powdery. It just kind of fluffs up. And if you go here, we have almost 1.5 foot grade here of mulch and compost. And here we have 45 plus fruit trees. We have garlic growing. We have native plants such as the native California poppy, our state flower. But all of this would not be possible unless we're making this rich humus. So this is the end result of about 8 months of composting here. And, this is a little bit earlier in the process. So this is when it's not fully broken down, but this is our sifted product. And caring for the soil really is this essential process to build climate resilience. You know, carbon sequestration, of course, but building this living topsoil is what allows for this abundance of pollinating plants to be grown. And so everything from edible plants, you know, the flowers that appear on some of these weeds tucked in here, but you can see just the sheer volume of forage and the diversity that is allowed by this. And I think this would be an opportunity to segue into, you know, we're in Los Angeles, and the amazing thing about Los Angeles is we can grow 365 days a year. There is no real off time here. There are dearths, and especially in the hot heat of summer, you know, things really slow down. But we have the ability here to grow a tremendous amount of pollinating and food producing items. So here you see our Pakistan mulberries here, and I actually purchased all 3 of these trees from one of my favorite nurseries here in the San Fernando Valley called Según Nursery. And they're an awesome place. And again, Byron was super fortunate and willing to go take a little video journey there. So mulberry here, mulberry season is upon us. But we have a little video which I'm going to talk over. So if we can run that video, I just want to show what a resource can be here at a local nursery. So again, Según Nursery, North Hollywood, located on Burbank and Laurel Canyon. And your nurserymens are your friends. So these are all of their seasonal vegetable crops, roses, native pollinator plants, South African. So when we talk about some of these plants, obviously fruit trees, climate appropriate. We have an amazing Mediterranean climate here, okay? So what that means is hot, dry summers, cold, wet winters, but it's an amazing growing season. And pretty much anything your heart desires will grow here, especially with a little attention to the microclimate you live in. And so when you go to a great nursery like Según Nursery, but you can use, you know, big box stores like Home Depot and Lowe's, but the people that are stocking those places, they want you to be successful. And they're buying those plants that they know can really do well in our respective gardens. And they have a huge array of knowledge there. And oftentimes when we're talking about pollinators, we're thinking about native plants, climate appropriate plants, and also, but food, right? Food production, all of these fruits and vegetables that we love start as flowers. And of course you can buy plant starts, but starting from seed is an amazing journey. You know, one of those seed packets there cost $1.99. In there, you've got, you know, well over 100 seeds, you know, so for $1.99, you could be growing 100 carrots. For $1.99, you might get 30 lavender bushes. And so, you know, going on that journey, and then this is a great one. They also have a wildflower packet. So those poppies you saw behind me started at Según Nursery for $4.99 right there. A wildflower pollinator packet. So if you're interested in supporting bees, in building into this ecology, into exploring, you know, really the bounty and abundance that is here in Los Angeles. And let me flip around. Hey, hi. Hello, family. Closing, sorry, using StreamYard, not Zoom. If you're interested in that, you know, taking a trip to your nursery and really figuring out, hey, what can I grow here it's an amazing journey. If you visit our website, cufarm.org, you can click on, I actually made a PDF there, and it'll show you 365 days a year what you can be growing here in Los Angeles. And so as I make my way back here, I just
Can I jump in
please.
on a little bit?
Please.
You know, we're talking about bees today, and we have an observation hive, and I can talk endlessly about bees. But you know, they are the gateway for us because they have big colonies. There's lots of bees, and we can throw them in an observation hive for you to look at on a live stream. But you know, not everyone is into bees. Not everyone's into insects. But if you have an inclination to have a healthy garden, you know, providing some of the natives is an opportunity to provide a small ecosystem for the native bees. And there are a variety of native bees that we can't really show because they're all quite solitary. But planting things like sage, the native sages, and I'm sure Elliott is going to expand quite a bit more on some of the natives even in his garden. All of these plants provide such a large ecosystem for local native insects. So bees are the gateway into the beauty of insects, and the world of insects expands so much deeper and is so much more fascinating than just bees.
Hey,
So I just kind of want to share that.
sorry, we got a question from a viewer. I'm going to put it up and read it to you guys.
Okay.
So it's from Linda. Your nursery is so beautiful. I'm curious about why you have what looks like tarps on the ground by the trees.
Yeah, so that's specifically for Pakistan mulberry season. Mulberries are a very delicate fruit, and in the slight breezes we're having today, the fruit just falls straight to the ground. So I've got mulch and compost on the floor, kind of makes it hard to pick. So basically those tarps are down just for right now to catch the falling fruit during the month of May.
Gotcha. And then just to follow up, do you ever have problems with pests or anything with your compost?
Yeah, so the biggest one I would say is insects. So roaches can be kind of an issue. Diatomaceous earth, it seems to do a pretty good job of keeping them at bay. As far as rodents and stuff like that, no. We happen to have quite a bit of feral cat activity in this area, and so I've never had a rodent issue.
Gotcha.
And we always do what's called a casing layer. So on those piles, when we're done, we put a really thick layer of mulch over the whole thing to hide on any exposed food scraps. So that tends to work for us. So no, pests have not been an issue, but it's definitely a concern and something you have to think about when dealing with compost.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
So yeah, just piggybacking on that. So we have a big vegetable patch here with a bunch of stuff going on, but all around that garden are native plants. And I know, so as Byron mentioned, and you can speak more to this, Byron, but like, you know, native bees are solitary. They're not living in hives. And so in general, what I've understood is this kind of environment provides places for them to create their little solitary living environments, logs, sticks, etc.
Yep, that for sure. A very common native bee that most people are familiar with in our area is the carpenter bee. People often mistake it for the bumblebee. It's a big black bee. She's a big black bee, and she burrows holes into wood. Also uses, holes that already exist, like in bamboo stalks, something like that. And the male version of the carpenter bee is a big fat orange bee that kind of hovers around certain areas looking for the black queen to mate with. And she has a very small nest of a couple bees. But they're the most prominent of the native bees because they're so big. The other native bees are all quite small. And once you get into insects, you start looking into areas that you didn't look in before, like the cracks of walls or even the cracks of asphalt. And occasionally you'll see insects coming out of these places. And more often than not, those are the natives. And what the native plants do for them is provide in sort of an instinctive resource of food. Like I said, the sages and all of the native plants that we have in the foothills and all that. So yeah, they're a harder insect to get to know because they are solitary and they're very small. But
so as far as pollination, so we have native plants, and this is something. So not being the avid beekeeper, but understanding the need for ecology, right? For creating an environment where a system can work together. Early on, a gentleman who was a biodynamic orchardman, I guess you'd say, he told me, he's like, hey, the best thing you could do for anywhere you're trying to produce food is to line natives all around it. And so that, will they only forage on native plants, or will they go
I can't say that for sure, but insects are so adaptable.
Right.
Their genetics are adaptable. Their ability to forage on a variety of sources is adaptable. Certainly, they have a propensity to go after the natives, but I imagine that things like South African plants and the Australian plants provide resources for them as well.
I've noticed of late the carpenter bee, the female, the black bees, are all over Palo Verde, which seems to be flowering, which is a very common landscaping plant, both at like institutional plantings. Like you see a lot of Palo Verdes in front of like strip malls, and you'll just notice the carpenter bees just going wild on them lately.
Now, is the Palo Verde, is that an Australian or is that a
I think it's
California?
actually from the Sonoran Desert, so I think it's like
Oh.
kind of like borderland of like in inland California into Arizona.
Okay.
We have a couple of bee questions that just came up from some viewers. All right. So
Finally.
Yeah. I know. 25 minutes in. I hear that native honey is good for allergy patients. Is that true?
Well, yes. When you're consuming local honey, you're exposing yourself to the local pollen. Those little tiny specks of pollen are in the honey. So when you consume it, your body is able to have a very mild exposure to that pollen. And in theory, you build a resistance or a tolerance to the pollens that, cause your hay fevers or
Okay.
allergies. Yeah. So, yes.
All right. And then as a follow-up, do native bees produce honey?
No. Well, I mean, certainly not on any kind of level that is harvestable.
Mm.
Maybe in like tiny droplets. And more than likely, it's just that they're going to forage just to feed themselves and then go back home. One interesting thing about honey is that it is also a mild antiseptic. It is the original sort of neosporin, if you will. It causes works against bacteria and is an antiseptic. So you can actually use it on wounds. However, if it's a bright sunny day and you're putting honey on a scrape or something like that, you might attract some bees.
Sure.
So be careful.
And then we have a bit of a longer question here from Maria. At my house, we have tons of flowering and fruit trees. However, lately I've noticed more and more bees either dying or sadly dead on my walkway. Do you have any
Okay.
idea why this is happening? What can we do to ensure that this doesn't become a problem? We don't use any
More
types
often-
of sprays. Sorry. No, we don't use any kind of sprays is what they finished with.
Okay. Yeah. More often than not, when you're seeing dead bees at your back porch or along a walkway or pathway, it is usually because that pathway is lit, and chances are there's a hive nearby, so they have light exposure at night. And bees react a lot like moths to light at night, and they go to that light, and they just kind of fly around it until they die. So chances are you have some lights on your path or near the path, and the bees can see it at night. If that is not the case, then yeah, well, I mean,
Byron,
it could be something like. Go ahead.
I'm going to turn my mic off just so that I don't conflict with you talking about this. But
Sure.
if I walk over to the water feeder that we have here, could you talk a little bit how the issue we were having with them foraging?
Oh yeah, that's
and
a
how
really
we
good
were
point.
losing hives. So I'm going
That's
to turn
totally
my mic
relevant.
off.
Okay, so what Elliott's going to do is he's going to walk over to a little watering hole for the bees, which all beekeepers have to provide a watering hole for the bees because that is essential. Bees need water and they need sugar and pollen. But the most important thing here is water. And I'd been putting hives here for years at the farm. And what would happen is every year the hive would grow and get strong and they'd start to put some honey away, and then they die. They just disappear. It was like you hear about colony collapse disorder. Well, it was kind of like that. It was like everything was healthy and then they were gone. And what we discovered, or I should say what Elliott discovered, was just outside his property, there's an area along the street that is always wet. It's sort of just a depression in the ground where all the water funnels and collects, and there's always a puddle no matter what. And I'm sure most people around here have heard about the mosquito problem, and the city's ability, or the city's attempt to eradicate the mosquitoes by lacing everything with poison. And so what the city does is they will drop poison in these puddles and all over the streets, and then the bees will get into that water, and then they're poisoned.
Oh, I see.
So Elliott installed this water feeder over here, and ever since he did that, the hives have not died. So that's very encouraging. And if you're seeing a lot of dead bees and you don't have lights on at night, you might want to look for some puddles around your property, and make sure that those are dry
Oh,
if you
interesting.
can.
Yeah. One more bee
Or,
question.
or provide a source of water in your garden, just like he's done here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
This one's from Terry. I see bees hovering around my lavender, rosemary, and mallow, but don't see much on my vegetable plot. Can I assume they'll make their way over there to pollinate my veggies? Oh, ducks.
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. The mallow and the lavender and the rosemary are sort of like priority number one for bees. I guess it's sort of the catnip of bee food, if you will. And they'll definitely hit the vegetables, absolutely. But they love that rosemary, they love that lavender, and they love the mallow. Yeah, you can even eat those leaves. Those mallow leaves are pretty healthy.
And then
Also
PL,
native.
PL wants to know, is the water also cooling the bees?
Well, that's a really good question, man. Yes, but only when they bring it back to the hive. Certainly, they need the water to stay alive, but that water is also deposited in and mixed in with the nectar that they store in their bellies. And when they deposit that nectar into the cell, it has a higher water content, and part of what a bee colony does is they evaporate that water, and that sort of, it's like a swamp cooler. They create their own like a little ecosystem or a cooling system within the hive, and they're constantly moving the flow of air and moisture throughout the hive to keep a perfect balance. And so as a beekeeper, I also have to be conscious of when I open a hive. I can't do it when I don't want to do it when it's too hot. And I also definitely don't want to do it when it's too cold, because it really disturbs their temperature control systems. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. No more questions for right now, so I'll let you guys get back to it.
I'm just over here. I just wanted to show the variety of sages, which happen to be my favorite. So here we have black sage, Salvia mellifera, Salvia apiana, white sage, purple sage, Salvia leucophylla, I want to say. And we have actually a fall sage called pitcher sage, but all of these are super abundant pollinators for both natives and non-natives. And so again, one of my favorites, super resilient. What you're seeing here is completely unirrigated. Now I think part of the misnomer some people think is, oh, native plants, don't need to water them. Incorrect. You do need to water them to get established, but what they're adapted to is they make a really robust root system. And what you'll notice is everything here is mulched. And so as I was showing you in the back, and you saw in the video that Byron made for us, this is essentially composting in slow motion here. So by putting mulch down, we're putting it down at least, 4 to 6 inches thick minimum. And that rots down. And as it shrinks, it's got a layer of organic humus underneath. So if I were to come through here and kind of kick down into the mulch, you can see what we're working with underneath. And this is really building amazing soil down here. So all of that lends itself to making essentially a sponge and a buffer around this entire plant area. So sages are just absolutely abundant producers. So you can see all of these flowering stalks that are happening here, really carrying us in through this springtime. And I was trying to catch, it's very hard to catch on there, but the native bees are all over those native sages. And I guess I just wanted to swing over here for the sake of, this is the public library. Why would we not talk about books a little bit?
Yay, books.
Books and ducks. So, field guide here, Introduction to California Plant Life by Robert Orndorff. It's a really awesome one to keep in your hiking backpack. And it goes through all the different microclimates that we have here in California, from chaparral to oak woodland and everything in between. So fantastic one, highly recommend. For building your landscape garden, California Native Plants for the Garden. And this book, really fantastic photos, but it really opens your eyes to the kind of landscaping you can do. And we're stepping away from topiaries and hedgerows into the kind of reimagining the wild landscape in our yards, but that natives can really provide some amazing landscapes when incorporated into the yard. So California Native Plants for the Garden, Carol Bornstein, David Frost, and Bart O'Brien. Fantastic book. And this is a really old version, so much newer available. But if you're at all into gardening, Sunset Western Garden Book is an absolute encyclopedia and Bible for here on the West Coast. And the beautiful thing about this book is they've broken down all of the West Coast, and I'll try to swing over to Los Angeles here, into microclimates. And so Sunset, we have USDA hardy zones, but they made their own. And so, if we look out here, Woodland Van Nuys, we're right in that kind of 18, 19 area here. And so what you realize is LA itself has a ton of different microclimates. And what the great thing is they'll go plant by plant in here, and they'll tell you what zones, according to them, these plants do well in, what their needs are. And the newer version has fantastic photography and all that, and it's updated and has a huge section on natives and pollinators. So highly recommend this book. And then this is not a book you can find in the library, but a short plug for California Rare Fruit Growers. And this is the Fruit Gardener monthly periodical that they put out. If you're interested in how much wild stuff we can grow here in the Southern California, highly recommend this book, or this group and their publication. But if you're at all interested in joining the chapter here, just a great group of people that are interested in sharing and really care about the ecology, really care about the whole connection here of plants and bees and tending the earth. So I was fortunate enough to become a member of them a couple years ago, and I always really enjoy getting these in the mail once.
And
you
have some pretty rare fruits growing on your property too, don't you?
I do. I have some unusual stuff going on. I've got some white sapotes and Pakistan mulberries. Behind me here is a babaco papaya that I actually got at one of the rare fruit grower meetings from a little cutting. Got some guavas going here. The amazing thing around LA, right? We can be growing that duck right there is eating almonds. We can be growing almonds and guavas in the same yard.
Oh, that's an almond tree?
That's an almond tree.
Oh, I don't think I've seen one. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in the almond production business, so I'm not watering it probably as much as it needs. But yeah, that's an almond tree.
Right.
We've got tons of apricots, nectarines, peaches, all those that do really, really well here. So yeah, just a plug for finding those resources. But we really are fortunate here, especially in Southern California, to be able to grow so many different things together. Byron turned me on to Cultriformis and all the Australian plants that are just phenomenal pollinators.
Yeah, and as well as getting back to the soil, a lot of those Australian natives, especially the acacias, are what their root system does is provide nitrogen for the plants around them. So there's a symbiotic relationship between a lot of trees where acacias provide the nutrients that a fruit tree needs. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Did I? Okay.
Oh, you're right up on the hive. All right.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to point out here. So I've put a camera here right on the entrance of a hive, and what we have here, we have some bees, and look, you see that bee that came out? That's a guard bee. The first bees here, they're guard bees. They're checking out what is moving, and if they have to defend. Occasionally, you're going to see some bees with little white legs come on and land, and that's pollen. Pollen is one of the most nutrient-dense products in a hive. It has all of the protein. It's a complete food, actually. It has all of the minerals and vitamins a human body needs to survive. Honey is almost a complete food. It lacks a few of the proteins and vitamins we need. But without pollen, there would be no hive because of all of the protein and vitamins that it provides. And the bees will then store that pollen into the honeycomb cells, and we call that bee bread. And they store that away for the incoming larvae that are developing. And yeah, this is just I mentioned bees have taught me how to really observe really observe and refine my observational skills. And part of being a beekeeper, one of the first things you have to do is just kind of check out what's going on here at the entrance. How much activity is there? Are they bringing in lots of pollen? When they land, are they landing up here, or are they like dropping down and then landing? Because if they're dropping down and then landing, it suggests that their bellies are full of nectar and they're maybe a little overweight. And so instead of, being nice and light and landing here or just flying right in, they're kind of, they're heavy. They're getting a little fat and have a full belly. And so these are all of these little things really teach you just sort of how to observe. And it doesn't just have to be bees. Learning how to grow a plant from seed is such an observational skill. Wouldn't you say, Elliott?
Yeah, an old timer told me that a really good farmer, it wasn't that he had any magic tricks or anything. He was just really good at observing what was needed at the right moment.
Right.
And that it's training your eye for that, right? It's I think another one was someone told me is like, until you start learning about what's going on in the natural world, it's like walking through a museum where they flipped all the paintings backwards, right? But once you start to really understand things, you're seeing all this beauty of this interaction and the artistry of nature interacting. A question that came to my mind, and how do these bees know that this is their hive?
Well, that's a good question. They are incredibly intelligent, and they're smart enough, just like we're smart enough, to know how to get home. They know what their home is. A lot of it has to do with scent, but it's all visual cues too. So they recognize colors, they recognize landmarks, they recognize, that landmark can be a tree, it can be a fence, it can be a building, all these types of things that they then recognize as they're flying to and from the hive. And I talked earlier about the first roles of a hive or of a bee becoming a nurse bee, and then as they age over a couple of weeks, they gain their flight wings by leaving the hive but not going too far and then coming back. And once they have the confidence to leave the hive and come back, then they can go forage. And the way they know where to go to forage is the other bees tell them exactly where to go and exactly how far to fly, through a little thing we call the wiggle dance. And they wiggle their butt, and this little wiggle dance lasts milliseconds. But in that millisecond or two of dancing, what is communicated is exactly how far to fly and in what direction in relation to the sun. It's really awesome. It's so awesome and so advanced. And for me, I'm constantly just awestruck by every little thing I learn from bees and every little thing I read, and certainly their relation to plants, and then learning about the life cycles of plants and the bloom cycles, and then you get into weather, and it's just this never-ending journey into nature, which I've really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Sorry, Elliott.
No.
Byron, how long did it take for you to become comfortable around bees? I mean, I know this is your profession now, but how long did it take you to just kind of get naturally comfortable just being around them, and kind of the fear of the stinging and all that seemed to kind of move away?
Can you see me right now? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I would say to be as comfortable as I am right now, to sit next to the entrance of a hive without any kind of protection, definitely took some time. It took a lot of bee stings is what it took. And really understanding where a bee sting hurts and how I can avoid a bee sting by sort of being calm and non-reactive. Because most of the time, a bee will not sting you, but they will get up in your face and threaten to sting you. And if you're non-reactive, then there's no problem. But if you're, like swatting at them, then you're going to get stung. But the thing about a bee is if you're going to get stung, you're going to get stung, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. But if you're not going to get stung, the way you can stop it is being non-reactive. So this moment here that I'm having, can you see the hive next to me?
Kinda, yeah. We see definitely the bees kind of swarming around you. Yeah.
Now it's in frame.
Yeah.
This took some time. And it's rare that I actually even work with any kind of protection now, because I just know how to move around bees. And it's a very similar movement to having ducks be comfortable around you. if you move too quickly around a duck, they're like, they quack and they take off. But if you're just nice and calm and move slowly, they're watching you, and they chill out too. So it's really, they've taught me how to chill. Bees have taught me how to be cool, man.
Oh, well, nice little bee action there. Nice.
Evan, we need to do that. We need to, yeah.
Okay.
Chill.
Yeah, we'll need some bee chill. All right.
Be chill. Yeah.
One more question for Elliott here. Are you still there, Elliott?
Yeah, I'm just hanging out with a duck now.
Okay, you're ducking. He's being. You're welcome. Terry wants to know: can we grow mangoes in the valley?
Oh, good question.
Yeah, yes, it can be done. Little tricky, okay, in that the summer heat. So I would say you can do it. Ample water, heavy mulch, really good compost, and then shade cloth will be your friend to grow mangoes. But I know a gentleman that's successfully growing both Valencia Pride and Philippine mango in Altadena, which is a little bit more moderate than the valley. But yeah, it's totally doable. If you're on the other side of the hill, Santa Monica, all that, absolutely go right ahead. But the valley can be done, just special care, especially through the dead heat of summer and then the cold snaps that we get where we really get down to low freezing.
Oh yeah. All right, that's it for the questions for now. I'll let you guys get back to it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's amazing to me is, you know, it's all circular. So like, think about ducks and bees. These ducks, every morning when I let them out, they go over to the beehive and they eat up last night's dead bee. So the bees will constantly clean out the dead out of the hive and they kick them out the front door. And the ducks go over in the morning and pick up that protein. And they eat that protein, and that's a little snack for them for their egg production. They're voracious insect eaters. So we used to have a really bad issue here with fig beetle larvae. And it was bringing in the ducks that really eliminated that problem here. So again, if we're thinking about this whole thing as one big cycle, it's this idea that all of it is connected. It's all working with each other. And I think sometimes that's what we get away from we think everything's operating in isolation. It's just not the case. So that's really the point I was making there. It's like all of these things, I think a little bit of an echo. So I'll swing over here. That's all good. I think all of these things are kind of, my wife is looming in the background.
Is Vane there with you? Did she want to say hi?
Shadows.
No, she's over there.
Oh, that's Byron.
Okay, I think she might have taken off.
No, there she is. She's right
We had
there.
a baby too. She's like, they're like,
yeah, just hiding.
we're fangirling you. Okay.
You're in it.
She can say hi if she wants.
You don't have to run. It's okay. She's hiding now. She looks like
okay.
Bigfoot behind the tree.
A sighting.
Yeah, there's been a sighting. So in any event, yeah, I mean, I don't know. What do you think, Byron? Should we just kind of sit together and maybe field some questions? Yeah? Let's see. If I swing this up, maybe we can just sit here.
This has been so cool, just staring at the beehive. I could just have watched that forever. It's just so calming. And I kept looking for the white, like, I'm like, I see it. I see them carrying in the white. Wow.
If I give you this earbud, can you hear them?
I can hear you.
Oh, well then fine.
Oh, right.
I can hear you. All right, sounds good.
Elliott, have you been stung by bees a lot? Like, do you have a...
So Byron doesn't believe me that I'm allergic to bees. His whole theory is I need to be stung more. Now let me say something. I got stung a lot as a kid and I never had a problem. And then I started this guy took me on a bee removal, and we were up on a third-story scaffolding on the side of a mansion, roto-zipping into stucco. And he had me suited up. It was absolutely terrifying. He gave me earplugs because the roar of the beehive was too loud.
Oh.
Here's the deal. I can handle being stung. I swell up worse than the average person. So if I get stung, it just swells up and it's annoying to me. So if I'm going to go in the hive, I'm suiting up. I'm not so casual. And I would definitely say because of that, I have a nervousness and apprehension there. That I just always wear my suit, and that's what I do when I work with the hives. But I helped a neighbor here. They had a swarm in their compost box, and so I cruised down the street with a empty box and my bee suit, and we put them in there, and now they have a thriving hive in their yard. So yeah, but I definitely rely on this guy. He is
Wow.
the bee whisperer.
And
Yeah, a little bit of a bee whisper, but I will say, as far as the getting stung thing, it's true. The more you get stung, the less you react. And you do just need to
I've
get
been
stung more.
stung a ton.
Elliot, I
There's
don't feel like
such a
Elliot
thing as
believes you.
I do not believe him.
It's true. No, it's true. I used to when I get initially when I
You
started,
never had a problem being stung.
what I would swell up if I got stung on the neck.
Never.
A little bit, yeah, no, for sure. And like if I got
He
stung
has
on the
hidden
fingers, my
EpiPens.
fingers would swell up, but that doesn't
Yeah.
happen at all anymore.
He's just dosing EpiPens in his
Yeah, he has
urine.
EpiPens all over.
I mean, I want to believe, I do believe that. I think if I was really like adamant about it, but in general, I got stung on my tongue as a kid and had no reaction. And then
Wow.
skip forward 20 years, I got stung once in the vein of my hand. It looked like I had a cartoon hand after someone smashed a hammer on it. I mean, it was like double the size for about 5 days.
Well, and this is also an important point because a lot of people talk about being allergic to bees and allergic to bee stings, and the truth is, 1% of the population actually goes into anaphylactic shock
Yeah.
where you can't breathe.
Oh.
Very, very few people have that reaction, but everyone has a reaction to a bee sting, just like
Yes.
everyone has a reaction to a mosquito bite.
Yep.
Um,
And some are worse than others.
and some are definitely worse than others. And some places where when you get stung on your body, it hurts more, and some places it swells up more, even on me. But typically, and I don't mind getting stung, and I guess I am kind of a glutton for punishment, so I kind of invite getting stung so that I guess there's less of a reaction. But anyway, it's true.
I hate him. It just every time he's like, I don't believe you. And I'm like, man, here's a photo. He's like, nah, you just
We should have named it Bees versus Trees with you two.
trees versus trees.
versus trees.
But Byron,
Who
you
will
don't.
win?
Byron, you don't wear a suit when you do bee removal or anything.
Well, again, that depends.
Gotcha.
It depends on the bees. There
Oh.
are certain areas of Los Angeles where there are definitely dangerous bees. For some reason, the area just east or south of Mulholland around Laurel Canyon, there's some oddly aggressive bees in that area that I always have to suit up for. But everywhere else, it's rare that I will suit up when I'm doing a bee removal. And part of that is because when you're removing a hive, it's just so confusing for the bees that they're not as aggressive as they would be, if you're just kind of like, bees just aren't that aggressive. Maybe it's just me, but
Yeah,
they're
I'm
not
feeling like
the
that.
sort of defensive, crazy insects that everyone.
Well, I mean, you
I
want to
wa-
be
They are.
cool.
Yeah, he is the coolness. He taps into the bee vibe, and I think you elicit that in that moment, man. I mean, I think you know how to work with the bees in a way
Yeah.
that keeps them really calm, And I think for the average, The Idiot's Guide to Beekeeping was the book that I read early on,
Yeah.
and it was super helpful. And I remember one of the tips was like, always don't just go into a beehive casually. It's like going with an intention every time, and a great metaphor for life. But it's like if you go in with a plan, it can set your course a little bit better than, oh, I'm just in here and now I'm freaking out because, a bee's pelting my veil. And what was I doing here in the first place? But
Oh yeah.
can I just make one little hippie statement here? Because I just want to say, so Byron and I do work together a lot, and we've done a lot of educational stuff. And, I wanted to bring it back to this message on Earth Day about the term I really love is symbiosis, right? Organisms and things working together, and it's mutually beneficial. And I see that as a microcosm and a macrocosm of what we're doing here with the ecology in Los Angeles. And so it's like Byron has this amazing connection and intelligence and business that he's built around beekeeping, and it's such an asset to be able to have that as a part of what we're doing here for a community garden and outreach program, right? And so I think I just wanted to bring that Earth Day to me is really about how do we build community and how do we look for the biomimicry, right, of the natural world, things working together. And I think that's such an important thing that I hope everyone takes away from today, that this is all about coming together and working together. That's what the real natural system is, and that's what I think Earth Day should be about, man. And that's
Yeah.
You are poetic.
well,
I
and
know,
that's
bravo.
I just clicked in my brain a little bit because I felt like that we have that's always the lesson to me, and I think that's also the service that the library provides it's a place that where people can come together, you know, and the fact that you guys have this department and that you do this programming is just exceptional. And thank you.
And yeah, thank you. We are both very happy to share this with the audience and with you, and it's a real pleasure to do what we do and share it with you.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Oh,
Thanks,
the
guys.
love's coming in, man. The love's coming in with these comments. Thank you all for this beautiful presentation.
It's Earth Day, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you had any final thoughts, but it sounds like I don't know. Any last words to the audience before we sign off? Be cool. Love trees.
Well,
love bees.
For me, it's really just been about opening your mind to observation and listening to the wind and
Definitely.
listening to the weather and not letting the mental chatter that so many of us have going on in our brains sort of block what is right in front of you, and allowing the beauty to just kind of like speak to you instead of your mind trying to speak to the beauty.
Yeah.
It's really well said.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks, guys. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity, man. Really appreciate it. Always a joy to be here with you. And Kevin, I was hoping for more snarky commentary from you.
I mean,
but
I'm
it's
trying.
okay.
I felt like I did a lot of snark. You know what? Off camera, I'll just
Okay.
unleash it. All right, guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks, you
Thank
guys.
you.
We'll
I'll be
see
getting
you.
the snark. It's okay.
Yeah, well, you're my boss, so you're allowed to. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us for today's LA Made program. And remember to check out the library's online calendar at lapl.org/events.
And tomorrow, I added this in. If we forgot, Earth Day, of course, is tomorrow,
right.
April 22nd. And at 4 o'clock, streaming here on our library YouTube and Facebook, will be the Your Author with local author Jessica Mizan and discussing her book, Plastic Girl. And we'll be giving some of those books away. So tune in, 4 o'clock. And on Saturday, April 30th at 1 p.m., we will welcome author Tai Bui for this year's big read book, The Best We Could Do, which Kevin and I say as our mantra every day. We're doing the best we can do.
Thi Bui is a Vietnamese American cartoonist and author of the critically acclaimed memoir, The Best We Could Do, which was selected as a National Book Critics Circle finalist, a Common Book for UCLA, an American Book Award, and an Eisner Award finalist. This program will also be a free event, and those attending the virtual program will have a chance to win a copy of Thi's book.
Well, until next time, we truly appreciate all your support, and the success of LA Made and all of our library programs could not happen without viewers like you. So thank you. Gracias.
Thank you.
Bye.
Oh, tree.
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 Bees.
Bees. Yay.
Árboles.